my thing I've been consistent on is it has felt like for the last 2 or 3 months that, and this is obviously pre-Middleton getting hurt, but it's felt like a finals rematch to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's felt like a finals rematch. That's where we're headed.
Well, I'm on the record, though. I went out on a limb. I like Golden State to get there. I like Golden State to get to the final.
Serious.
I personally think if I'm Steve Kerr, I'm going in with these guys before Game 3. We're watching film and take a look at the 20 possessions a game that they are not playing their style offensively. They are helping Memphis guard them with quick shots, tough shots. And look, I'm going to put a lot of that on Klay Thompson. I think he came back from his layoff. It was so obvious in the beginning, like, man, this guy's trying so hard to prove I'm back. Look who I am. Don't forget about me. Like, this is, you got left off the 75-75 team. Like, all that was in the air. And it was like, man, you're just pressing so bad, and it's not the way you guys play. And then he started to calm down, and that last month it looked like Klay again. I feel like he's kind of back there because it's the playoffs. And I'm trying so hard. The other night, I think he took 5 straight shots for them without anybody else really touching the ball because he wanted so badly to get going. And to me, I think if I'm watching film, I'm Steve Kerr, and I'm like, and you put in a tape of us at our best, ball player movement, this is what it looks like. They're not guarding that. This makes us guardable. And I think that, to me, is more about them than it is about Memphis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that, because in the parts of the game that I've really gone back and watched multiple times and broke down, Memphis is still miscommunicating a ton.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great example of this. So, like, they're up, I think it was 91-89. There's a missed shot. They get the offensive rebound. I think Wiggins got the offensive rebound, and they don't match up with Steph off the offensive rebound. He banks in the 3 from the top. Very next possession, they come down. Steph goes to set a little slip screen and pops out to the left wing. They miscommunicate on the switch. He gets an open 3. Couple minutes later, Steph gets the outlet pass or a long rebound. He dribbles up the court. There's like 2.5 minutes to go in a 1-possession playoff game, and Memphis is pointing at each other to pick up Steph.
Yeah.
Now, he shot it off the side of the backboard. He missed the shot. But, like, those mistakes, like, in aggregate over 7 games, you can't beat the Warriors playing that way. So that's where, to your point, I agree with you. I think it is more about the Warriors getting back to, this is how we play. We can break down a defense with our style.
I completely agree, and I've said this before. I could do a pretty nice dissertation or write a thesis on Golden State Warriors guard screening action. Their entire system is based on guard screening action. And then Draymond's the guy that's got the CPU, like Terminator, processing. This ball's going to go where it needs to go. And when he was out, I felt they missed that even more than his defense.
100%.
Because I saw guys getting out of their lane. And it's because Draymond's going to go, he's going to look, read both sides, action at the same time, and go, okay, no, I'm ruling this out right now. We're going here. And that means maybe Damian Lee doesn't come off and shoot a 3 that I watched him shoot before he came back, because Draymond's like, no, we're going to do this because this is better action. This is more advantageous. So his ability to process that, but it's all predicated on all of their guards, Poole now in that category as well. Their split action, their guard dive, guard flare, all of that stuff. And it's so fascinating because that is the essence of why their offense is so hard to guard. They're willing to move, which a lot of guys aren't. Those guys are willing to run miles a night, just like JJ used to. And they are willing to screen. They're also willing, this is what I always describe, I used to tell my AAU team this all the time, you've captured something beautifully as a coach. And let's say you play for me, and I say to you, I need you to cut as hard as you can 6 consecutive times, knowing that most likely you will not see the ball. Are you willing to do that? Because if you're willing to do that, we're going to create something beautiful here.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I have to create trust as a coach. When it is your turn, meaning you're the next pass, you're the guy. We did everything we're supposed to because that ball's supposed to come to you now because you're open. It's going to come there. And then the expectation is we have to be able to trust you to do the same thing. When you build those 2 things amongst your team, that's what Golden State's been able to do. But they get away from it sometimes, and and it looks more like most of the other teams in the league. And now they're guardable, and I think they've done that. And think about, we're talking here, in a tight series, you just give 8, 10, 12, 15 possessions like that over the course of a game. Boom, that's the difference. That's a 6-point win rather than a 6-point loss like they had the other night. And so I think for me, it's very, very watchable on film for that group, and that's why I think they're gonna be a lot better at home.
Completely agree with you on the Draymond comment, because it was blatantly obvious in January and February how much they missed him offensively.
Yeah.
And you can say whatever you want about his finishing or his shooting, but he is so important to what they do, and the sort of symbiotic relationship that him and Steph have, of his awareness of where Steph is and what Steph is going to do. He just makes things easier for everyone. And I think this is a natural.
The Warriors playing the best basketball right now, because you were big on the Suns, I think. Do I remember that correctly?
I've said for a while now, yes,
okay.
that I think the Suns are going to win the Western Conference. And
Are you
obviously after this
shifting?
weekend, you may have some question marks around that, which is fair, Stephen A., which is fair. I think on the surface, the Warriors are playing the best basketball.
Okay.
That's fine.
That's
But
very big of you.
I think about who they played in the first round, and I talked about it earlier. They played a Denver Nuggets team that was, undermanned, playing basically against one great player. And the Nuggets have some guys on their team that aren't particularly, high intellect basketball-wise, and you can't have that against the Warriors and win. This round, the Warriors could easily be down 2-1 in this series if Ja Morant makes the layup at the buzzer, okay? So let's just acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But when I look at the Eastern Conference right now and that Bucks-Celtics matchup, that series feels like the most intense, two heavyweights going at it, and it feels like the winner of that series will be as battle-tested as anyone in the playoffs, and will have sort of what I think of as like the upper hand going forward, and should be considered the favorites. And I think who wins that series wins the East. And by the way, Stephen A., we were talking off air about this. You look at that matchup. Let's say Warriors do win the West, and you get to either Celtics, Warriors, or Bucks, Warriors. I think the Celtics, because they already inherently play that switching defense, they would be that would be a really good matchup for them.
You ever watch that show Mad Men?
Of course, my favorite television show ever.
All right, I'm glad you brought that up, because you look like those dudes. You look like those dudes, and that's not an insult. That's a compliment, because you're a good-looking dude.
Is it the hair part?
It's the hair part.
Well, him and Dan don't have the same haircut now that I'm seeing him again in person.
But let me say this to you.
No, I grew my fade out.
Yeah.
I grew my fade out.
Let me say this to you. I'm bringing that up. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because I mentioned earlier, like you dancing like Fred Astaire, and that's what the hell you're doing now. They did some dancing in that show occasionally from time to time, and that's what you're doing here. Before I get to my point to show what I'm talking about, let me also say this. Episode Martin, 1994, when Martin was proposing to Gina, and Brian McKnight came out and sang to her. That's what you're supposed to do. If you're going to have somebody sing to your woman,
it's Martin and Gina.
No.
It's a television show.
I'm just saying, that's how you do it.
Dan Orlovsky has resources.
That's how you do it.
He has resources. He doesn't need to go through an app
to
have some random person sing Happy Mother's Day.
You think he's going to get Usher to come? Like what?
Dan, I love you, but you're wrong for that. You're wrong for that.
All he had to do was call his boy. I could have made something happen for him. You see, but he didn't use all his resources. That's what JJ talked about. He's supposed to use the resources.
He used his iPhone and he downloaded the app.
It's pathetic. I keep telling you, his wife needs to leave him for a couple of weeks. His wife needs to leave him a couple of weeks. He'll learn. He's going to learn. He's going to learn, okay? Now let me get back to this. The question is, Warriors playing the best basketball right now, or who's playing the best basketball right now? My answer is the Warriors. See, you dancing around the obvious, okay? It's the Warriors. Boston's been up and down. They ain't playing better than the Warriors. Milwaukee hasn't had.
But look at who they're playing, though.
No.
You got to put it
that
in
ain't
context.
What the question is. I do.
Boston could have won that game
Saturday. I am putting in the context, especially knowing I'm gonna sit across from you. I'm gonna make sure I got context, because when it comes to contextualizing something, nobody holds people more accountable for not doing that than you. You're worse than me when it comes comes to that, okay? So I know that I'm prepared for this, okay?
All right.
So you look at Milwaukee. They've been up and down, but we know they're handling their business. Don't get me started with Miami and Philadelphia. You know how that's been. Now we get out west, okay? Is it Memphis? We saw how Memphis struggled with Minnesota, okay? We're looking at Phoenix, okay? We see what's happening with Phoenix. We saw how they struggled against the Pelicans with them young thoroughbreds they got on there, and we saw what happened to them this weekend. We saw Dallas down the first 2 games, really ran out of Phoenix. In game 2, they come back for game 3 and 4. They're doing what they're doing. Who has been the closest to being a model of consistency in terms of what you see on the floor against them, their style of play, what they do to beat you, et cetera, et cetera? That would happen to be the Golden State Warriors, who, by the way, won the game after Draymond Green was ejected from the game. So let's take all of that into consideration. There is no question. When you consider fluidity, offensive fluidity, movement of the basketball, spacing, perimeter shooting, etc. When you look, and not only that can get to a point where they're playing like piranhas on defense. Who's come the closest to doing that on both sides of the ball on the most consistent basis throughout these playoffs? It has been the Golden State Warriors. Now that may or may not continue, and we shall find out. But thus far, the team that has been playing the best basketball all around in the postseason has been the Golden State Warriors.